Welcome back, everyone. Got to give the little head nod as we come in. Our penultimate game of the day, Guarp taking on Domino. And, well, I guess, we can kind of come in with the narrative of Guarp being the new team in the league, having been promoted from Division 3. And they've had a relatively good showing in the split so far.
Yeah, I feel like, for expectation's sake, the fact that they've picked up the wins that they have against the teams that they have has been very fun to see. Picking up wins against well, 2 out of 3 of their wins are literally against the first and second place team in the league. It's kind of strange because they seem to suck against everybody else. So Guap, and I mean, I hate to say it like that, but that's kind of what's happened. They've been rolled over by a lot of the rest of the league so far. Um, but here today against Domino, they did lose the last time out against Domino all the way back in week 1 or 2, I believe it was. So picking up, the win here to at least get a head-to-head tie would be super important, especially because right now they are 1 game apart. So if Guap win this, they will tie up with Domino with a tied up head-to-head. If Domino pick up the win, then they open up the gap between themselves and the bottom 3 by 2 wins. And that could definitely be a pretty big safety net if you're talking about, for one, avoiding relegations, but two, on the opposite end of that conversation, maybe sneaking away a playoff spot, right? We've just seen Monster. We just had a brief talk with Farrell there. Or not Farrell. Was it Farrell? Shakal talking
Denzel,
about how
yeah, Chicago.
Shakal talking about how they have definitely been struggling. We're having a bit of an identity crisis. We need to find the fix, and we need to find it soon. We were 5-2 and now 5-6. That could be, this could be the win that at the very least, ties them up there. And then you look towards, funnily enough, Saturday, who are Domino playing? It's Monster. So a win here could actually just leapfrog them 2 positions if they're able to go into that Monster game as well and pick up another win.
Yeah, and I'm looking at, some of Domino's recent results as well. The loss to Lungfist Lightside, loss to Rate as well. Before that, they did pick up a pretty good win against Natives, who are looking like one of the strongest teams in the league right now. So we know that the quality is there for Domino. And as you mentioned, if they can take this win against Guarp, then they've got a struggling Monster Rugby Gaming to go up against, and they could be finding themselves pretty much cementing their spot or getting very close to securing that spot for playoffs. So for me, when I look at Domino, I just want to talk about Zero because I think he's been really good. And every time I've tuned into the stream, I've always been really excited to see Zero playing because I think he's that kind of flashy player who always seems to do well. Is that where your eyes are looking as well, Jamada?
Yeah, I think for Domino, a lot about Sarah here, securing a good lane matchup of him, or just a comfort champion that he's happy to play him. But not only that, I think also towards Porcupine, ensuring that he's on a jungler that can facilitate some of these lanes as well, because we've definitely seen some fairly high ceilings from the likes of Hellman and Spooder in particular. I've been on occasion quite impressed with, but it's about ensuring that they are, to me, set up in the early game or through the draft to actually find some success. So I want to see Domino give themselves a fairly easy to pilot draft in that sense, with a champion in the mid lane for Sarah that gives him a lot of individual agency, whether that's in the early game to the mid game or throughout the game. Whatever they can find is the best solution for what they're looking at is definitely what I feel like gives Domino the highest success rate in taking down Guarp here.
We've seen Domino banning away the Corki as the one champion that we have seen, and Sigma playing so far, having played it on Tuesday. And Guarp, they're going to ban away the Rengar.
Yeah, they will take away the Rengar from Porcupine. Definitely an interesting choice here. We'll see what actually ends up being left available now with both the Gangplank and the Rengar being taken off the board. The Seraphine as well, Corki banned away. So a lot of the other, very considered high tier picks starting to be able to slip through the ban phase here. Things like Senna up, things like Zeri, Yumi, both up as well. Plenty of very, very strong choices, even if you look towards the mid lanes or all mid lane. Strong mid lane picks up and available. Let's see what Guarp decide to ban out here on their third and final ban for phase 1 as time ticks, and the answer will be Lulu. So we'll see what exactly we get out of them. Things like Lucian we saw in just our game just gone by still, can be considered a B1 pick if you're trying to set up for the Nami Lucian. It didn't work out in that game, but I feel like that was more to a point of Rising Dawn executing on a fairly strong early game draft themselves. There goes the Renata, so things like Kalista kind of out of the question for now. But again, things like Wukong, the junglers, haven't really seen much of Viego today. Since its nerfs, it feels like a lot of people have potentially fallen out of love with that for now here in Division 2. But what has been up throughout the entire day is this hovered Belveth, and it would be very, very fun to see. I'm not too particularly, educated on a lot of the matchups so far in the meta, but it seems like if she can get going, like many champions, that release after 2020, if a snowball starts, it tends to not end. So we'll see what Porcupine can get done. This Belveth will be locked in. Expect this to be in the jungle role here for Domino. Now, what I would like to see is safe lane setup, right? Lanes that have a lot of autonomy for themselves, generally speaking, lanes that can kind of function by themselves and provide a lot of priority and safety so that Belveth here, Porcupine on Belveth, can make it to these neutral objectives or, full clear safely, things like that, get to those scaling power points so that she can start to take over the game slowly.
Now, this Yuumi is locked in for the side of Domino and for Snubby. We do also have the Zeri available. We talked about the Senna priority as well, but it's Guarp themselves who are looking to snatch away the Zeri, try to deny this Zeri-Yuumi combo.
Yeah, so I think the idea here from the Yuumi pick here is you don't want to allow Guarp to have Wukong, Zeri, and Yuumi at the same time. It just feels like a bit of a very impossible task to deal with. So we'll take away one half of the combo here. I feel like Yuumi is the better option because we can at the very least now probably look to take Ezreal on R3, I would imagine is the thought process. So what I wouldn't mind seeing from Guarp is actually just a preemptive, or well, it's not really preemptive, but a Nautilus pick so that you can have, guaranteed lockdown for what should be a fairly slippery AD carry. Guarp though, hovering towards this Sylas, and they will actually end up getting locked in. So now it does make Domino kind of pick, do we want to take something here in the mid lane for Zero that does fairly well into the Sylas, or do we just want to go with our AD carry, which I'm expecting is leaning definitely towards the likes of that Ezreal. You could also technically go for the Lucian here. Again, what we want to see out of a Belveth draft is typically things that can, hold down lane priority pretty, sternly. Lucian would be that. And it seems like Domino are actually going to go towards that in the end. So no Ezreal lock in here, and now they have the opportunity to take away what I'd imagine is going to be two very hyper-aggressive support picks from Nuggets champion pool.
I think also a good opportunity to mention as well is Drunken Messi jumping in for Guarp, but subbing in for Galen, I believe, who was jungling for them on Tuesday. So we'll see now whether the side of Domino want to ban away some of those aggressive supports that you were mentioning, Jamada. For now, they're taking away some of those solid top laners, split push top laners in the form of that Gnar, first of all.
Yeah, Gnar goes first. I expect Guarp, like we said, probably something along the lines of Nautilus. Or rather, sorry, I've flipped the teams around. Now that they know that they know the bottom lane matchup, they're seeing top lane bans go to the table. They might just do the same thing, I think, realistically, unless you want to try and pin down Sero's champion pool, which seems to be a little bit too wide to really do that. You just go for the scope of, bans on the top side of the map that you don't want Spitter on. Another pick that he has lent on from time to time, I believe, is the Aatrox, if memory serves me correct, on the Domino end. So we'll see whether or not we get that ban away as well. The Malphite ban plus the Gnar ban. What is that looking for here? Maybe Domino looking towards Gangplank, or maybe Aatrox is just what they're looking for. I think Aatrox, though, however, has a pretty good time into Malphite. If I know my top lane matchup's okay, so we'll see what Guarp read into these bans from, but definitely looking to strip away team fighting top laners from Guarp's champion pool. Definitely the case. They take away the Kayle, so there won't be any hyperscaling from Spuda on that pick. And I wonder if he just feels confident with all of these top lane bans to just pick up his Aatrox blind, or whether or not he feels like Viggo has a champion in his pool which can feasibly match it. Because from Viggo Mopson, we haven't really seen too many carries come out. It has felt like it's mostly been from him. A lot of the what we would kind of consider weak siders and tanks, and effectively just like Gnar duty for the most part. But Domino, they're going to go down the Victor route. Something that once it does hit level 6, right, can have a lot of priority for in its own right with the upgraded Death Razor. But before then, definitely very vulnerable to set up from the Sylas. And of course, the Wukong, that 2v2 in the mid jungle for Domino is definitely going to suffer if Guarp tried to abuse it.
And I'm just wondering for Viggo, you talk about team fighting top lane, is his Ornn still available, and it is what they look towards. So that is locked in, and now all that is left is what do they want to take in the support role. And you talked about those engaged supports, to try to get on top of this Yuumi. The likes of the Nautilus is available, so is the Leona. Maybe you could even try something crazy and go for something like the Blitzcrank.
Yeah, you could go for something kind of wild. You could also go for something super like Enchantery as well. I was also maybe considering the Rakan here just because I think you have, one pretty good form of, sort of non-committal engage through the Ornn ultimate. If you feel like you can go on that engage, just the Wukong alone didn't really look like enough. I think the Rakan really ties up that package nicely. I think it was either that or Gorin and Chan Review, and something like Karma to try and buff up what is, a relatively short, or it's a melee heavy composition on the rest of the team. Trying to buff them up with the mantra movement speed could have been very nice. Spuda, I think taking the Aatrox here makes a whole bunch of sense. You're into the Ornn lane, you're also into the Wukong as well, who has very short range. You're going to come into your ranges, try and gank you. Of course, we know what Aatrox can do in some of those situations. Post level 6 with the World Ender, seen plenty of those be turned around, and I think Domino hit most of the criteria for holding a Bel'Veth in their draft in the jungle, right? They have 2 side lanes which should have a lot of priority in the early stages, and then the mid lane, I think just the range disadvantage that Guarp are going to be suffering in that matchup should mean that Sero in the earlier stages, sort of 1 through 3, should get lane priority and get Bel'Veth to the point where she's past the first clear, and then after that, play towards strong side, whatever you want to make your strong side, right? If that's the top side of the map with the Aatrox matchup, go for that. If this is trying to play through the Lucian lane, to try and facilitate him to be super strong and get to an early Gale Force so you can try and shut down the Zeri, do that. I think the options relatively wide, and for scaling as well, not so bad from Domino, but you can't really say that it's terrible on Guarp's end either.
Now, something I do sometimes hear about Bel'Veth, or something that I was speaking to one other analyst about with Bel'Veth, is they reckon that Bel'Veth isn't strong if it's going against a lot of range. And when I look towards Guarp, well, first of all, do you agree with that point, Jamad? And second of all, if you do, it doesn't seem to me that Guarp have a lot of range to abuse that Bel'Veth.
Yeah, if there's one thing that definitely seems relatively apparent about Bel'Veth, is that she definitely does shred these short range team compositions, these melee champions. It's just the nature of the champion as well. She does typically tend to go into that Blade of the Ruin King first. She's a scaling attack speed champion, so she is, kind of a stat monster in that regard, right? She is designed to deal, DPS over time and quite quickly, right? Short range compositions definitely her favor, and I feel like Guarp, like you say, they don't really have too much range. It's mostly just like working off basically Zeri. The range of engage, however, is definitely something to be considered here for Guarp. Between the Ornn Ultimate and having the Rakan as well, if they're able to find, a pretty nice chain CC perhaps onto the Bel'Veth, who can be pretty squishy pending the builds, it could be nice to try and shut that one down, but also, of course, the other carries that are available for Domino.
And with that, we are heading into our first pause of the day. I thought we were going to get a pauseless day, but sadly that is not the case.
I will say, it does feel like, touch wood, that we do typically get very few pauses in Div 2. Something I can't quite say the same of Div 1 on occasion. Div 1 pauses can feel quite bad, especially just because of the nature of you're in the studio, you're there. Sometimes you might even get called into the actual studio itself. You're like, all right, the game's going to be ending soon, and then I'll pause. And it's like, well, now we have to sit here and wait, unfortunately. Very short pause, thankfully. Must have just been some kind of settings issue, perhaps, between some of the players. We are already back underway.
So this is our penultimate game of the day. Our final game will be Rate taking on Lungfist Lightside, a very important game as well, which should be an absolute treat to watch. Not to say that this game won't be. It's our first Bel'Veth of the day. It's actually my first time casting on Bel'Veth as well, so I'm very excited to see it in action.
All right. So, I believe my first time casting Bel'Veth too.
Ooh.
Did we have a Bel'Veth on Tuesday? Can't recall. Reed, you have a better memory than me. I'll talk directly to our producer.
I don't think there was a Bel'Veth on Tuesday.
I don't think it showed face on Tuesday. I'm cheating and looking at the match history, and it did actually show his face on Tuesday between Rate and Domino. And
Domino?
Yeah, it was Rate that picked it up. And Rate that won with it. It was Jorbu who piloted that one. Yeah, champion. Okay, so it's my second time casting it. It was actually a pretty successful game from Jorbu, just for confirmation, now that I recall. But yeah, definitely a champ that can take over a game if it's handed a lead, like we saw in that game. It was Domino that went for a bit of an invade, perhaps having learned from the tech of Jorbu. Gave it a game's practice or so, a couple more games between Tuesday and now, and decided to field it for themselves. See how Porcupine gets on the opposite side of the matchup. I believe it was the same jungle matchup too, just reversed. It was Porcupine on the Wukong. So let's see how he gets on.
do wonder if this kind of fits into Porcupine's champion pool, because usually we do see Porcupine on those. I mean, to be fair, they are still melee, but I feel like more bruisers slash tank champions, you know, the likes of the Wukong, the Volibear, the Diego.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely fair. It has played quite a few different champions, Porcupine, but typically, you know, like you say, it's the things like the Viego, the Wukong, the Volibear, those things that, you know, go in, get fights started typically. Belveth doesn't quite necessarily fit that profile, but does like to get into the mix of things once those items are online. And I'm really curious to track what the build actually ends up being from Belveth. I feel like we've seen quite a few different builds so far. We've seen, you know, most commonly the Blade of the Ring King and the Frostfire be a pretty powerful combination for sticking power and dueling. Because Belveth is so short range, she can't really go full glass cannon, it feels like. As looking for a gank towards Vigor Mopson, who is quite high up in the lane with no dash now and a flash.
There is no steering charge available, and Vigor Mopson is just going to get run down. Flashes out of the Aatrox W, but it is not enough to keep them alive as Porcupine takes first blood for Domino.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw what happens when a Belveth gets an early kill in Tuesday's game. Duncan Messi just gonna pick up this skull here as gonna look for a skirmish on the back end of it, but look at Silas's health bar. It's not high enough at all.
Way too low, and Guarp decide against going for the fight, and Duncan Messi will be able to take, let's say, a reasonably favorable trade onto Porcupine as Spuda and Vigor Mopson duking it out, and Vigor Mopson kind of coming out of that one on top.
I think I want something now, but you have to remember, Spuda hasn't actually reset yet, so taking trades like this, burning pots, all things Spuda's going to be okay with, because he's just going to take his reset and then come back to base, lane rather, with stats, with pots, and be up in economy on that side of things. And in the mid lane, Zero doesn't end up blowing his flash, but see Guarp just assist in shoving in that lane so that you can have Ansema, sorry, actually have a pretty decent reset. Now Zero will get his own reset of his own in. We'll go back and teleport likely to try and contest the waves even further. Porcupine did base for a Noon Quiver, so we'll see what we actually get out of him, whether it'll be something, you know, a little more spicy, perhaps, like I think there was a shield bow in Div 1. Not sure how I feel about that one, to be honest with you, but I've seen quite a few different variety of builds. Just feels like maybe Belveth could be one of those champions that, you know, differs game to game.
Would shield bow be going into Rage Blade and then you go on hit?
So I've seen loads of different builds come out. I think the most common one that I've seen succeed in Pro is Blade into Frostfire. Okay. I think that Frostfire gives you a lot of sticking power. It also gives you, you know, the tanky resists that you kind of need to play out some of these more prolonged fights. Of course, if you do get a reset, then picking up the coral, getting into your evolved state, I suppose, for pretty lengthy duration does kind of mean that maybe you can get away with not having those tanky stats, but it certainly does help in getting your damage out. The other one is Kraken into Blade, which is definitely a little more glass cannony, but I mean, in a game like this, you could maybe get away with it because you have your E as well to soak up a whole bunch of damage, I believe. We'll see what exactly can get done as Zero could have to lose his flash.
Too far forward, flashes out of that grand entrance. Now, something that we definitely have to talk about that we haven't talked about yet with regards to Belveth is the importance for both teams to be contesting that Rift Herald, because if a Belveth gets Rift Herald, well, that tends to be at least 2 towers falling in their favor.
Yes, it does. Of course, Belveth gets a whole bunch of bonuses when she absorbs the Rift Herald compared to, you know, absorbing something like a dragon or just regular Void Coral. I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember off the top of my head, and I should have read up on it after Tuesday's game where I casted over the Belveth. But effectively, just gets bonus stats if it's a Void creature that she consumes. That's the TLDR of it.
Yeah. And she gets a lot of these weird minion things that she likes to throw around. And I almost forgot, because I did make a promise to myself that if I ever get a Belveth, I would be calling it the Demigorgon from Stranger Things.
Oh.
Because it's got somewhat of a resemblance, like in appearance anyway.
So, yeah, I mean, so I don't know. So funnily enough, I haven't watched Stranger Things,
Okay,
but
good
I
show.
play a fair amount of a game called Dead by Daylight, which happens to
Right.
have Demogorgon in it,
Oh, okay.
and I just don't. Nah, I'm gonna have to call you out on this one. I don't quite
Fair.
see the resemblance.
See, for me, it's like, you know how it's got like the 4 wings kind of spreading out? It reminds me of the Demigorgon's
Oh, of
face.
Demi's head, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's mainly it.
All right. Well, that I will at least give you.
Yeah.
But generally, I don't know. I feel like they're entirely different creatures. One thing to note, which is definitely very interesting, Hellman is going to stop the base here of Vigor. I don't think anything else will come of it. Domino actually going for a full lane swap to the top side, which it feels like has really fallen out of favor for contesting Heralds
Right.
throughout the course of this year. It's something that we definitely saw a bit of an evolution of in 2020. This is Zero dying.
Flashless Victor getting abused by Guarp. Really good stuff working on that flash timing.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's a really good reaction to reading the map as well. Guarp, they see that the lane swap comes in from Domino, and they just go, okay, well, we can't really pick on the top side right now, but what we can pick on off the back of this map opening is Zero. That flashless Victor, like you say, very easy to get on top of him. The Chain C comes through. There's just too much damage to deal with, and now Porcupine sticking around, still looking to contest this, potentially 3v4. Zero's on his way out. Spitter doesn't have teleport, but has priority. So if they can keep this thing here for a long time, then maybe the Aatrox shows up, but I don't know. It's tough.
The Culling's going to force Porcupine away, and the Rift Herald secured by the side of Guarp. And that's exactly what Guarp needed to do, deny this Rift Herald away from Porcupine. And I guess that's one stage of defeating Belveth's plan completed.
Yep, exactly. Denying that away from Belveth can definitely help stop a snowball. Already has that 1 kill, of course, in inventory. 72 CS. Not so bad, considering how much Belveth has been hanging around on multiple different occasions. I never quite get used to how much damage that laser does. Yeah, it's...
Sorry, Ultra Shock Laser. Spark Surge is the rip-off Talon.
Dash. Yeah. Dash or Talon-y, depending on how it gets used. Funny champion, Zeri, ain't she? It's just...
I haven't had a chance to really play Zeri yet. I would love to. Actually, a few of the ADCs I haven't played. I think kind of...
I feel, because I'm an ARAM warrior.
Right.
And that's actually how I get to learn a lot of new champions in particular.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, a tried and tested strategy by the Shy. So,
Okay.
just letting you know, audience, if you trying to widen your champion pool, or hell, even learn how to team fight or like track certain win conditions. Like ARAM is unironically a pretty good practice tool for that. But yeah, just haven't really had much time to get used to Zeri and how strong she can be. Of course, she was available throughout a fair amount of spring, but she wasn't really utilized that much. In and out of popularity, it felt like, because, you know, maybe people didn't really know how to play with or around it just yet. And then, of course, so far in summer, Zeri has continued to be one of the more high priority AD carries on the patch. Of course, so many different plethora of buffs and now nerfs coming in. That Ultra Shock Laser really does need to get tuned back down, though, man. It just feels super impressive to play against.
It's who was that? I think it was someone in NLC Div 1 pulled out a Zeri AP mid, and it was disgusting.
It was Eminence. It was Eminence. Yeah, it was the Kai'Sa build with like Muramana and Ludens, and he would hit people for like 1k at that spike, and it just there just wasn't really much counterplay to it, unfortunately. I can't remember who he pulled it out against, but I have to imagine it just didn't really feel interactive at all. As Hellman could have been a victim of the gank that dashes away, and very quick reactions.
As soon as he sees someone, pulls out the quick draw, and Porcupine for a second, not knowing which way to go in the Ultra Shock Laser, but is able to dodge out on it. And I do like the fact that Snarby's kind of just sitting with Porcupine right now and just playing with the jungler, looking for potential ganks with Porcupine.
Yeah, but this is the thing, like, it gives Hellman some solo XP. Yuumi beyond 6, like, levels, nice to have, not inherently, you know, super duper necessary, as long as she's not falling crazy far behind. Getting, you know, the likes of Hellman a little bit of additional XP, sitting on Porcupine, who right now is definitely the strongest member of Domino with that Kraken Slayer completed. Gonna feel pretty good though. Hellman is pretty close to Nugget there. Surprised you didn't see Guarp go in, but what they will do is drop that Rift Herald in the mid lane and try and force Domino into some kind of answer. But most of Domino already in the river, and that Herald is actually not gonna immediately charge into the tower. So maybe Sarah can make a bit of work of this. The Dragon's up as well. And now all of a sudden the Herald has actually turned into a bit of a double-edged sword where they have to get the Herald to charge, and now they can't necessarily contest the Dragon. If they try, it's going to be super late.
Well, Anzik coming in from the side, they focus onto Porcupine and they kill the Belveth instantly. But it's a big Chaos Storm and a Gravity Field as well. Vigo forced to flash away. Spuda on the chase. Saw Smite from a Duncan, just trying to get a bit of health on his Wukong. But it's just the one kill for the side of Guarp, and the Drake is still up and available for both sides to take.
Yeah, no one actually managed to get in front of the Dragon to try and take that one down, like you say. Porcupine gets caught off there, not quite sure how it happened. Guarp able to pick him up as...
Oh, they catch
Snabby.
the Yuumi and they go straight onto Snarby, but Ansig falls before Snarby does, and it felt like it would have been such a good play for Guarp Gaming, but in the end, they can't kill the Yuumi.
Get baited by the cat. And the cat, fortunately, able to stay alive for Domino's side. Now Cyclone in.
They're looking towards Spuda. How long can Spuda stay alive? Nugget goes in, and it's Duncan who falls again. It's a Guarp getting baited, and now Porcupine shows up. 2 kills going the way of Spuda as 4-4 for Guarp.
Yeah, there's just too much healing and sustain that comes in. There's not enough burst damage coming out of Guarp. And once they're not able to take down Spuda, that fight is as good as done. The turnaround comes in. Porcupine shows back up as well to assist the rest of his Domino teammates, and now able to pick up the second Dragon of the game. Off a pretty extended play. It feels like for the last 2 minutes these teams have been playing for this Dragon, 3 minutes almost. Now Domino will finally pick it up. As the top left says it's another Ocean, which makes me, assume it's a Hextech Dragon. As I believe we have a replay queued, and look into it. Which part of it is it exactly? It's actually going to start all the way back as to how Porcupine ends up getting picked out. And yeah, looking for Fred Spaghetti, doesn't really realize that Spuda and Hellman can't really hold the choke away from the rest of those Guarp members, and then eventually Guarp do force, or are forced back by Domino as they start to approach the Dragon, trying to control the area. Snubby gets caught out, temporarily detached, but it just ends up being a bit of a bait as Silas ends up dropping. Domino able to burst him down, and then they find the slow on the Ultra Shock Blazer here, and then it's just over the wall from Duncan Messi, trying to look for some kind of pick whilst they assume Porcupine is on his way back out on the map. But too much healing, too much tankiness, not enough burst damage coming through, and unfortunately Domino just turn it off the back of that. Not enough execute coming through from Guarp just yet, and carries, particularly Fred Spaghetti, just not quite at that mark where he could, one-shot capitalize off the back of a engage like that.
The gold is still very even between both teams. You're talking about less than 1,000 gold separating them. And very importantly, Rift Herald is back up. And Porcupine will be eager to get his hands on that objective. Oh no, Vigor Mopson, that is not the searing charge that you want. Final chapter, Bellows Breath will stop the CC, but it doesn't matter. There's just too much damage from Domino, and Porcupine will get his second kill of the game.
Yeah, and that should be Herald off the back of that as well. It looks like, however, Guarp are actually trying to force play in the mid lane. Flash available though for Hellman. Teleports there too. How deep will they go?
Over the wall, lightning crash. Hellman will fall. Spuda shows up, and now he's in a 1v3. Make that a 1v4 as Anzig shows up. But so is Porcupine and Snarby. Guarp will back away, and Domino can just push in the mid lane.
Yeah, well, that's the crucial thing. The play in the mid lane actually draws Porcupine away. I feel like Porcupine should have really just committed to this Rift Herald now, because Guarp actually probably have a window to come back up and contest through the mid lane, which makes this Herald not so much an easy takedown anymore. Now, Sarah is in the top side with priority, at the very least, but Vigor Mopson, that tower being down, you feel like Guarp can easily just walk into the river off the back of this wave and just collapse onto this Herald. We'll see what they actually end up doing, because it looks like they're just not. So they'll commit to the bottom side. Instead, Fred Spaghetti should just about be able to cross-map this. Hellman's actually going to commit back towards the mid lane instead of the bottom side. And Guarp will just trade away this tower for Herald.
Now, Porcupine has that Rift Herald. I want to finally see this Belveth disgusting ability, passive, whatever you want to call it, in effect. The Rift Herald will get dropped in the mid lane. That will be the outer tower falling, the second outer tower. And it's going to get down some damage onto the Herald, but not enough to kill it.
That's
yeah. awkward silence around the Rift Herald, and
Oh boy. Huh.
Porcupine. That's not how you use a Rift Herald, buddy.
Yeah, that's gonna chuckles nervously. That's how that Herald felt. All right, well, Domino kind of threw away the Herald there. They could have potentially just forced down that tower. It was pretty low HP. I think you either just commit the Herald to kill it, or you do what you did and just force the numbers. Don't do both. Now, because of that, they don't really have the Herald anymore. And just chucked it down for free.
So,
Oh, wow. That feels bad. Sorry. Shock Laser just took all of Porcupine's jungle camps. Feels bad, man.
So, what I was going to say is I cast a fair bit of VCS. And when I started casting, there was a team. There still is a team called Cerberus. And they had a jungler called Ego, who was probably the best jungler in Winter Split 2021. But my first game of casting Cerberus, Ego twice used the Rift Herald. That was absolutely atrocious and did nothing. So whenever I see a Rift Herald like that, I call it...
You just...
It's the Ego play, yeah.
It's the Ego play, yeah. And the flashbacks start hitting you, right?
Exactly.
You just think, no another Herald like this, please. Yeah, it does fit as a name. Thank you very much, Rick. It's the Ego play. Very true. Void Corals will help shove in the mid lane wave there. Of course, in the empowered form. And the bonuses that you get. Won't deal too much extra damage, but still, extra damage is extra damage. As now this Hextech Dragon is up in 20 seconds, and you expect Domino will really want to continue the snowball here on this neutral objective, because the Hextech Soul super early on can really help sway balance of the game in your favor for the remainder of it. As mid lane priority will be gained by Guarp. Look towards Domino as they pick up this wave. Again, don't forget, the Void Coral will just spawn in. The forward creeps, rather. So it's just a little bit extra that Guarp have to deal with as they move back towards the mid lane here, or the river.
Mid lane waves have been caught. Guarp making their way into the river, but keep an eye on that flank from Spooder as he looks to get in behind Guarp, and he's just completely out of vision.
Yeah, well, they ping it though. I think because he touched the gate. And I've given him a brief vision there. As Zero caught out so far forward.
Nugget going for a flank of his own, and Zero caught out, but in comes Spooder from the backline. Fred Spaghetti running for his life, but Porcupine will find the kill. But Spooder's in the midst of 4 members. In comes Porcupine, going golden is Spooder, but Porcupine surely isn't going to be able to find an outplay. It's a shutdown for Ansigma, and the Silas will be able to get the bounty goal. Porcupine is on the run, goes in, above and below, trying to find the kill onto Nugget, will be able to get it. Porcupine healing, and is shielded by Snarby on the Yumi, and Domino will be able to stay in the fight, and Domino won't be giving away this Drake just yet.
No, not just yet. Porcupine even makes it over the wall with one of those awkward angled dashes. Now has 3 available. Teleport's coming in behind. Still has Smite in a couple of seconds. There's no Smite available, actually.
The 2v3! Porcupine steals away the Hextech Drake and takes Domino onto Soul Point, and Domino will go through the remaining members of a Guarp. It's an extended ace, and Domino will find the kills. Now Domino are looking towards the Rift, towards the Baron Nashor.
It's a flip from Guarp. Neva's jungle actually ended up having Smite, and now Domino, they pick up the Dragon. Only they pick up the Dragon, they're going to probably just pick up the Baron off the back of it. I think they're definitely going to have enough damage. Even if they didn't have enough damage, what they certainly have enough of is time. Domino, 2 versus 3 underneath that tier 2. Porcupine and Snarby make the play work. Porcupine able to demonstrate what Belveth can do with a little bit of additional healing on her back, and with that reset as well, just healed up, dealt so much damage, able to turn it around, get inside the pit, and just win. It's a plain 50-50. There's nothing else to say about it. No Smite. We'll have a replay, and we'll see what exactly gives Porcupine the edge. I mean, we're going all the way back. Sarah, there's just no reason to be stepping that far forward. Of course, you have to admit, definitely Rakan does show up a little bit late, but it feels like he is frontlining. But look at Spooder on that 1 versus 4 there. He's just so tanky. The Gore Drinker of the World Ender, the stasis, he buys so much time. I'm actually, to a point, kind of surprised that Porcupine didn't commit for a little bit longer inside of that clump. I feel like maybe he just didn't have the cooldowns available, but look at all of the damage and the healing that Belveth is able to give out in this situation. I think Porcupine even briefly surprised by how much damage and work his champion was able to do in that scenario. As we get into the pit, there's no health bar on the Dragon, but we'll see. Just kind of gets in and just chucks everything in. He just throws the E down. And I think the thing about the E, of course, what is it called? I think it's Royal Maelstrom.
E4 who?
Velvet.
Velvet, right? Yeah, it's Royal Maelstrom.
It like it just sucks everything. Sucks the life essence out of everybody in the vicinity. So I think just the dot itself picks up the dragon now. Porcupine underneath the tower.
Well,
Probably
this time
dead.
Porcupine isn't sucking anything away. 70% damage reduction does not matter. The charm is huge from Nugget. And this time, surely Guarp will take the fight. And Sicko's golden. The culling now shredding through the Silas. And Domino will get another. They're looking for Viggo Mobson as the slow comes through from Zero. And it will be another kill for Domino. It doesn't matter if you kill the Belveth, because Domino will just win the resulting fight.
Yeah, they just have so much damage. Spuda so tanky, so much healing. Even though Snarby's dead, he's still Spuda being able to stand up on his own healing alone. A lot of anti-heal is there and available for Guarp. It just feels like wasn't able to be layered in anywhere. Both Silas and Viggo Mobson just kind of died before any meaningful application of that could come down. And Domino sitting pretty comfortably. They crack open the bottom side tower.
Good job.
Nugget steals away the chicken, which is a consolation price. Realistically, Baron will be fading off in 30 seconds time. You imagine that's all they'll really be able to get, but still pretty big prize. 2 towers on the bottom side. Porcupine here waiting for Snarby, his little kitten, to come and attach to him.
Meow.
They will be off to the races yet again. And you expect they're just going to wait till this Hex Dragon, right? This Hex Soul. And then once that Hex Soul's in their back pocket, they're just going to be too damn oppressive to really play any kind of even-footed fight.
Actually, Reed, could we have a look at how much bonus attack speed Porcupine currently has?
Oh, sure. 78.
78.
Could be in trouble, but
I don't think it matters because Porcupine is just so oppressive on the Belveth. And the Wukong has already fallen. Porcupine going back over the wall. Nugget hit by the Prowling projectile, and Porcupine once more above and below. A 2-man knock-up. Looking for Viggo Mobson. Doesn't care that there is an inner tower. And Domino now wait for the wave before crashing on in. This is surely another tower going their way. They might even be able to just plain and simply take this inhibitor tower as well.
yeah, there's not really too much wave clear available. Silas tries his best. The wave is dead now, but I think they're going to get the tower before the reduction comes back in. And base wide open, bot side, mid lane, whatever they want. Spuda, pretty low on HP. Would like to maybe see him recall before his dragon spawns back up. Maybe even just teleport straight back so you have the control there. But maybe Domino can hold it as a 4 and he can just walk back out onto the map without having to expend that summoner spell. We'll just blow it bottom though, just to ensure that he is here and on the map. And Domino, full control of the jungle, full control of the river. It's Guarp that are going to slowly check into Fog here. That's going to be dangerous when you're already dealing with such a fed Belveth, such a fed Aatrox.
Over the wall they go with the final chapter. Nugget running out for his life. The Silas is in here. This is a 5v4 in favor of Domino. They were ahead in gold anyway, and with a numbers advantage, it becomes practically impossible for Guarp to be able to contest the fight, and now they have to somehow steal away the Hextech Drake, deny the Hextech Soul, and Sig on the backline. In goes Guarp. It's going to be a flip again. Porcupine won the last one, and Duncan is down as a smite against nothing. Nugget will fall as well, and Guarp are crumbling. Hextech Soul over to Domino.
Yeah, massive, massive, and with that, Domino should be able to end the game sooner rather than later. You see the teleport coming down into the mid lane. They have half a wave, full wave basically, being chunked out here. But see, a next one is shortly arriving. Domino, with this Belveth pick on Porcupine, has been so oppressive. Actually, Victor could do enough to get rid of a lot of the wave, but they're diving the towers.
Lightning Crash, Fred Spaghetti, Guarp, they need to fight this final fight. It is their last chance. Domino, will they back away? Will they reset?
No.
And they will. They're not going to play it aggressively. They're going to play this smart and sensibly, slow and patiently.
Yeah, by the books, all right. I thought Domino maybe had enough tempo to try and end the game here. Everybody goes back for the resets. We'll look towards that Baron, you have to imagine. And that should be the final nail in the coffin if Guarp aren't able to pick that one up. And I think it has to be said, pretty important victory for Domino in this game if they are to close out, which trends continue to look more and more likely, because this will open up the gap between them, Guarp, London United, and Lucent by 2 games. And not only that, Domino go on to play Munster on Saturday, who they'll now be tied with. And that could put them right in 6th place for playoffs if they end up winning.
Absolutely. They lost their previous game against the Monster. And that Saturday game is going to be so important. And Sig going on to the Lucian, but Hellman goes golden just in the nick of time. And while Hellman will fall, it doesn't matter because Guarp are going to fall themselves. Zero all by themselves now in a 1v3 will surely fall, goes golden. But here comes Porcupine. 2 kills have gone over to the side of Guarp, but Porcupine now in a 2v3 with Snarby healing him up, buffing him up. But in goes Ansig and is going to be able to find the kill onto Spooder. 3 kills for 2, and it is Guarp coming out on top. And Guarp, no, we can't fight this Belveth. We just run away, and we take the numbers advantage in the fight.
Yeah, Hellman gets caught off there, and it makes the fight a little bit too split for Domino to take on one front where they can consistently win everywhere. I think they spotted out Silas. Will they go for the chase down, though? I mean, they definitely have the opportunity to, I feel like. Yeah, Silas probably just dead to rights. Slow knock up.
Healing isn't enough!
Okay.
And that's why you don't detach when there is a Silas nearby.
Yeah, definitely underestimating how much damage will come out of Silas, and because of that, will drop and definitely delays potentially the gameplay here for Domino, as now has 109% attack speed. That's a lot. That's a lot of extra daggers in stats. As, he's going to just find himself onto Duncan Messi. Oh my word.
This is slightly disgusting. Duncan with the Cyclone to buy some time, but Porcupine just follows up with the Void Surge.
And I mean, the problem is they just can't kill him. That's without the Yuumi on his back for all of the extra AD.
I want to say he's only got 3 items, but we are only 29 minutes into the game, so that is still a lot.
I mean, for a jungler, it's so much for a jungler, right? Like, typically you don't see junglers with this much gold. In a lot of competitive games, but Porcupine has just been taking over. Snubby's finally here. But Porcupine's go back to base for another item, or not. Seems like he wants to stay out on the map, and I think it's definitely the correct call. You can finish up your GA, but I think you might just end up stifling your Baron tempo a little bit too hard with the rest of the map already here and available. 2 inhibitors. They're just going to look to shove in the top side of the map. Hellman gets a push in the mid lane. You expect him to go to the top side and just join the rest of his team. But these Void Coral and the Baron buffed creeps are going to slowly chip away here. And Guarp, they're going to have to make a decision soon. Otherwise, this game is just going to slowly bleed out of their hands.
They have to make a final stand. Maybe at the final inhibitor tower. Maybe they wait for the Nexus tower. But this is just a swarm of minions, a swarm of Coral crashing onto their inhibitor tower. Their inhibitor will fall as well. And all that's left for Guarp are 2 lone Nexus towers. And Domino, a 5v5 fight they can take. They have the Hextech Soul. They could maybe wait for Elder, but I don't think they need to wait for that long.
No, I don't think they do either. 10,000 gold lead. Domino overbearingly ahead. Again, Guarp have to just try and find an angle and go. See if they can pick off Hellman. See if they can somehow pick off Porcupine, and they're going to look for it now.
They go in. The focus is not onto Porcupine. Maybe they know that they just cannot kill this Belveth. Nugget has already fallen. The Silas next on the menu. Now they're looking for the Forge God himself, and Vigor Mobson will eventually fall. It's only Fred Spaghetti left standing. Prowling Projectile with the slow. Porcupine might want to go under the fountain for this, but in the end decides against it. Wants to protect his KDA as the Nexus falls, and Domino take their 5th win of Summer Split.
Yeah, not only that, they push Guarp 2 games down below them. They open up the gap. 2 games between them and the relegation teams, and now they are tied with Munster going into Saturday's game. That was a huge win for them moving forward into the rest of the split, looking towards playoffs. A very dominating game. Obviously, again, Guarp, you know, we've seen pretty insane ceilings, very low floors. It just felt like in this game, they just weren't really proactive enough, right? I feel like they had a couple of tools that they could definitely lean on for that proactivity, right? And we saw on occasion, you know, looking towards the early Rift Herald contest where they picked on Zero. That was one of the few windows they felt like they had. Still didn't really provide enough, really, it felt like. I don't think the Herald was picked up off the back of that. If it was, I don't remember it really even bringing them much success, much gold, much of a a platform to stand on moving into the mid game, unfortunately. And Guarp continue to fall further and further down the standings.
Yeah, and Guarp, they tried to shut Zero out of the game, but Spooder stepped up massively. Porcupine on the Belveth, absolutely huge. We're going to be jumping on into a short break, and when we return, we'll be getting our winners and our losers interview. So stay tuned and don't go anywhere. We'll be back shortly.